Welcome. Today we are going to dive into a really powerful shift in perspective, one that could honestly change how you look at personal growth forever. It all starts by challenging one very, very common feeling.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You try to change a habit, or maybe improve a skill, or just break out of a cycle, but somehow you keep ending up in the exact same spot. It feels like you're hitting a brick wall, over and over and over again. But what if that wall isn't even real?
And this is the core reframe. That feeling of being stuck is so frustrating, but a lot of the time, it's just a misunderstanding of what's actually going on inside your head. The reality is, you're not stuck. You're just running a pattern. It's like an automated, pre-programmed script that just plays out without you even consciously hitting go.
Now this is absolutely crucial. This isn't about you lacking willpower or talent or potential. Not at all. It's about the subconscious programming that's guiding your actions. The same old triggers lead to the same old thoughts, which then lead to the same old actions. And surprise, surprise, the same old results. Just understanding this is the very first step to taking back the controls.
So you might be wondering, why do we even have these patterns in the first place? Well, it actually comes down to neuroscience. It turns out our brains are literally hardwired to create them.
See, your brain's #1 job is to conserve energy. Conscious thinking takes up a ton of fuel, so whenever it gets the chance, it loves to outsource repeated tasks to an autopilot system. This frees up your conscious mind to deal with new, more complex problems. The only downside, the brain automates whatever you rehearse, even if what you're rehearsing is holding you back.
And what's really fascinating is the specific part of the brain that's in charge of this. When you first try something new, your prefrontal cortex, that's your thinking brain, is working overtime. But as you repeat it, control gets handed off to a different area called the basal ganglia. That's the brain's habit center. This is literally the neurological shift from conscious effort to subconscious routine. And this is exactly how that automation gets locked in. It's a simple but incredibly powerful three-step loop. First, there's a cue. That's the trigger that tells your brain, hey, time to go on autopilot. Then comes the routine, the physical, mental, or emotional behavior itself. And finally, you get the reward, which basically tells your brain, hey, that worked. Let's remember this loop for the future. This cycle is exactly what makes these patterns so hard to break. Okay, so if we're all running these internal programs, how do we actually get a look at the code? This is where a really fascinating framework comes into play, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, or NLP for short.
Now, I know NLP can sound super complex, but at its heart, it's kind of like a user manual for your own mind. It's not about fixing what's broken, it's about getting curious and understanding how you create your reality from the inside out. It gives us the tools to explore our internal patterns without judging ourselves for having them. And if we break down the name, it makes perfect sense. Neuro is all about your mind and your thought processes. Linguistic is about the language you use, both the words you say out loud and the ones you say to yourself, and how that language shapes your experience. And programming, well, that refers to those very patterns, the sequences of actions we run over and over to get results. It's basically the study of our own internal operating system.
And all of this leads to a really simple but incredibly empowering idea. Your behavior is not your identity. The pattern you run is just a strategy that you learned and automated at some point. But you, the conscious you, are the programmer. You actually have the ability to go in and edit the code.
So how do we start that editing process? Where do we begin? It all starts with one single foundational step, the one thing that can turn an automatic reaction into a conscious choice. As the habit expert James Clear puts it, you can't change what you can't see. Most of the time, we stay stuck because we just react on autopilot instead of actually noticing what we're doing. So the first, and honestly most critical step, is to simply bring that unconscious pattern into the light.
Because in that tiny moment of awareness, something incredible happens. The autopilot gets switched off, the loop gets paused, and right there, in that little pause, a space opens up, a space for you to make a choice.
And that is everything. Just noticing the pattern as it's happening is the turning point. The second you feel that pull from the cue and you recognize that urge to start the old routine, you've successfully interrupted the loop. In that instant, you've gone from being a passenger to being the pilot, and that gives you the power to steer in a completely new direction.
All right, let's bring this all home. Once you have that awareness and you've created that moment of choice for yourself, what do you actually do? How do you step into that role of the programmer and actively rewrite the code?
Well, once you can see the pattern clearly, you suddenly have options. You can decide to rewire your response to that same old cue. You could shift the meaning you've attached to the trigger so it just doesn't have the same power over you. Or you can consciously choose an entirely new, more empowering behavior to insert into that space you've created.
And the best part? The science totally backs this up. This isn't just wishful thinking. It's hardwired into our biology. Your brain has this amazing ability called neuroplasticity. Every single time you consciously make a new choice and then repeat it, you are physically building and strengthening new neural pathways. You are literally rewiring your own brain.
And over time, as you keep repeating this new, chosen behavior, that new neural pathway becomes the default. It becomes your new autopilot. And this is where the real magic happens. You're no longer just acting differently. That new way of being starts to become a part of who you are.
So I'll leave you with this thought. You are not stuck. You are not broken. You are simply running patterns, and you absolutely have the power to change them. The only question is, which one are you going to start with?